In 1958, Mao Zedong promised his people a shortcut to utopia, a communist paradise achieved in just a few years. What he delivered instead was the deadliest famine in human history. Over the next 4 years, an estimated 45 million people would starve to death. This wasn't a natural disaster. It was a man-made catastrophe born from a toxic mix of radical ideology, political terror, and sheer incompetence. How did a nation's dream of a great leap forward turn into a horrifying fall into the abyss? Let's uncover the chilling story of how one man's vision led to mass death. The Great Leap Forward was Mao's ambitious plan to transform China from an agrarian society into an industrial superpower, seemingly overnight. The core of this plan was collectivization. Private farming was abolished, and the entire rural population, hundreds of millions of people, were herded into massive people's communes. Their lives were completely militarized. They ate in communal canteens, slept in communal dormitories, and worked in brigades, all under the state's absolute control. Their homes, tools, and even their cooking pots were taken away. The family unit itself was targeted for destruction. Mao became obsessed with a single measure of success: steel production. He declared that China would overtake Great Britain in steel output within 15 years. This obsession led to one of the most absurd and destructive campaigns imaginable: the backyard steel movement. Across the country, millions of farmers were ordered to stop tending their fields and instead build small, primitive furnaces in their backyards. They melted down every piece of metal they could find: woks, door handles, farm tools, anything. The result was a colossal waste. The steel produced was low quality, brittle pig iron, completely useless for industrial purposes. Worse, it pulled essential labor away from the harvest. Crops rotted in the fields while the nation's farmers were busy making useless metal. Another disastrous campaign was the Four Pests extermination. Mao identified sparrows, rats, flies, and mosquitoes as enemies of the state. He declared war on sparrows, believing they ate too much grain. The entire population was mobilized. People banged pots and pans, beat drums, and waved flags for days on end, preventing the sparrows from landing until they dropped from exhaustion and died. The campaign was a resounding success in killing sparrows, but it ignored a basic ecological fact: sparrows also eat insects. With their main predator gone, locust populations exploded, swarming across the countryside and devouring crops on an unimaginable scale. The war on sparrows had unleashed a far greater plague. As the agricultural system collapsed, a different kind of disaster was brewing within the Communist Party's bureaucracy. Local officials, terrified of failing to meet Mao's impossibly high targets, began to lie. They submitted wildly inflated reports of grain production, claiming record-breaking harvests that existed only on paper. These Sputnik fields, as they were called, created a fantasy of abundance. Party newspapers published photos of children sitting on top of wheat so dense it could supposedly support their weight. Based on these fabricated numbers, the state increased its grain requisitions from the countryside, taking food that simply wasn't there. While the government celebrated its fictional success, the reality in the villages was a descent into hell. With their grain confiscated and no food left, millions began to starve. The communal canteens, once a symbol of communist abundance, ran out of food and shut down. People were reduced to eating tree bark, leaves, and boiled leather. As desperation grew, it led to unspeakable acts. Reports from party investigators, hidden for decades, describe widespread cannibalism. People dug up freshly buried corpses for food. There were even horrific accounts of parents killing their own children. One official report documented a man who killed his son, boiled the flesh, and tried to pass it off as pork. The countryside became a silent landscape of death. Bodies lay unburied in fields and on roadsides. Entire villages were wiped out. At the very top, Mao was shielded from this horrific reality. His subordinates were too afraid to tell him the truth. Anyone who dared to question the Great Leap Forward was branded a rightist opportunist and ruthlessly purged. The most prominent example was Pumdua, the Minister of Defense. At a party conference in 1959, he wrote a private letter to Mao, gently criticizing some of the excesses of the campaign. For this act of courage, he was publicly denounced, stripped of his position, and placed under house arrest for the rest of his life. His fate sent a chilling message to everyone else in the leadership. Silence was survival. Dissent meant death. The international community was largely unaware of the scale of the tragedy. Mao's government orchestrated a massive cover-up, refusing all offers of foreign aid and tightly controlling the flow of information. Journalists were barred from the famine-stricken areas, and the few who got glimpses of the truth were dismissed as Cold War propagandists. China even continued to export grain during the worst years of the famine to maintain the illusion of success and to pay for industrial equipment from the Soviet Union. Nikita Khrushchev, the Soviet leader, later mocked Mao's communes, calling them reckless and ill-conceived, which further strained the relationship between the two communist giants. For years, the full story of the Great Famine remained a forbidden secret, buried under layers of official denial. The famine only began to subside in 1962, not because of a change of heart from Mao, but because other, more pragmatic leaders like Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping managed to sideline him. They quietly dismantled the most radical elements of the Great Leap Forward, allowing farmers to cultivate small private plots and sell their produce. These small steps back towards a market economy brought the nation back from the brink. The recovery was slow, but the worst was over. Mao, however, never forgave this challenge to his authority. His desire for revenge would later culminate in another, even more chaotic campaign, the Cultural Revolution, where he would brutally purge Liu, Deng, and countless others who had dared to clean up his mess. The Great Famine stands as a terrifying testament to the dangers of ideology untethered from reality. It shows what happens when one leader's vision is imposed on a nation through force, and fear when truth is sacrificed for political loyalty, and when human lives are treated as mere statistics in a grand ideological experiment. The lessons learned from this catastrophe are universal and timeless. They remind us of the importance of open debate, a free press, and leaders who are accountable to their people, not just to their own dogma. The story of those 45 million victims must not be forgotten. It is a stark warning of where the pursuit of utopia can lead. Thank you for watching. The history of famines is often hidden, and there are many more stories that deserve to be told. If you found this video insightful, please give it a like to help us share these important lessons, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world. What do you think is the true legacy of Mao Zedong? Let us know in the comments below.